never heard it help, okay, when a person criticizes, complains, condemns, or engages in protracted conflict. So that's what I would call an axiom. An axiom would be, anytime I deal with another person, I will not engage in criticizing, complaining, condemning, or extending conflict. I simply won't. Now, once I have that wall of virtue up, okay, then other things come in its train, which is figuring out what's happening inside of me, metabolizing my anger, hurt, or frustration into something that I can actually express without hurting another person, figuring out what I really want and figure out a way to get it and be able to take no for an answer. There's a lot of wisdom, just simple wisdom there. But again, those of you who know me know that I think one thing that certainly propels my counseling practice is that hardly anybody can get this. I have trouble myself, and the only reason I think I can teach it is I've worked on myself so hard with the basics of don't engage in the 4 C's, never speak in anger. I can have it, don't speak in it. Try to figure out what I actually want, try to get it, and take no for an answer. That little piece of wisdom there, I think has had an extraordinary influence on making my interpersonal relationships good. They could be better, but as good as they are. And I think I have, and in general, have excellent interpersonal relationships. So there's an example of a tiny little piece of what I'll call the wisdom in area 1, which is extraordinarily difficult for people. So when I say to myself, what's my axiom? Well, first of all, never speak in anger. Can have it, don't speak in it. Never engage in the 4 C's under any conditions. Okay? That's it. That's my axiom. Okay? What am I trying to create? Well, I want to get my way. I like to get my needs met if I could, in the context of maintaining good interpersonal relationships, which means this may be the day that I don't get my way, and I'll take no for an answer in the service of something larger. Now, when I calm myself down and repeat this to myself, that's what I would call the beginning of a kind of interpersonal wisdom, which is what are my axioms? What are my goals? You typically have several goals in any given situation. And oftentimes when I rehearse to myself, what are the facts as I know them? Here's a couple of very simple things. Let's say I'm working with my kids at any given age. I have to remind myself, this is a teenager. Now, I got to tell you, many parents actually forget that when they're dealing with a child. And by teenager, I mean between 14, let's say 12, okay, 11, okay, and 40, okay? So between about 11 and 40, you're dealing with a person who is, by definition, has a mental disorder, okay? Mental disorder, mood disorder, feeling disorder. Disorder means things are just disordered here. And so once you say to yourself, factually speaking, I'm dealing with a person who, by definition, when you say adolescent, you mean a person with a disorder, right? By definition, I'm dealing with someone with a disorder. Now, when you deal with someone with a disorder, here's what many people think. I can actually put this disorder on pause and reach over the disorder and talk to the real person in there, okay? And then I'll come back and we'll take our places. What I have to remind people is there's nobody in there, right? There's nobody on the other side of this order. That's what you're living with. You're living with the disorder. Now, whatever the disorder is, you're living with it. So when people calm down and realize, when I say to them, that's what it is. You can't appeal to the ghost inside the machine. That's all there is. And so they say to me, why does my child lie, for example? And I say, don't use the word lie. Use the word, get off my back. Protect my privacy. Why are you so nosy? Why do they do that? Because they're a teenager or just a human being. And therefore, using punitive, harsh language to correct somebody always makes it worse, not better. So there's just an example of what are the facts. The fact is, this is an adolescent. Or with the spouse. Here's the facts of what my spouse is like, and they're probably not going to change much. Okay? Here's the fact of what I'm like in a work situation. People say, well, why does my boss act that way? I said, because your boss is mean. That's just what your boss does. Okay? Well, why is he mean? I said, you really want to spend on time trying to psychoanalyze your boss and how this person came to be mean? If you want to, we can try to figure it out. I don't think it's the best use of our time. Let's just factually say you have a mean boss. What do you do with a mean boss? Option 1, complain, be bitter, and gossip. That's one option. The other option is the basic wisdom of dealing with a mean boss. Right? So again, one thing I realize people don't stop and say, well, what are the facts here? What are the facts, the ineluctable facts with which I have to deal? What's the wisest way to deal with them? And what policy is based on my axioms and my facts? Now, when I stand up here and say this wisdom sounds so simple, What are my axioms? What are the actual facts on the ground that I can't deny? What am I actually trying to create here? When people slow down and just ask these questions, what are my axioms? What are the relevant facts? What am I trying to create? All of a sudden, clouds begin to dissipate. So that's one very, very important piece of wisdom with anything that you're dealing with. What are my axioms? What are the facts? What am I trying to create? What's my goals, policies, etc.? Always within some kind of moral framework, even though the question might not be overtly a moral question.
Shalom, 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 tova uveracha. Shalom, 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 tova uveracha. Ay, 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 ay.